pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oh, okay. Thomas, if you can put up the picture image, thank you. So we begin today on definitely a somber note. Last Tuesday, September 12th, the South Huntington School District lost a monumental figure in its 99-year history. With the sudden and unexpected passing of Jim Caden, the town of Huntington lost a community leader, the state of New York lost a revered advocate for public education, and the world lost a beautiful mind and kind soul. In 24 years on the South Huntington Board of Education, Jim reshaped the trajectory of our district, always putting students first and becoming a self-made budgetary expert. His colleagues on the Board of Education admired his intellect and greatly valued his compassion and friendship. With his dry but hilarious sense of humor, his contrarian and libertarian way of thinking, and humble persona, Jim was completely unique. In the span of the same conversation, he would make you laugh, think, and doubt your own convictions. By day, Jim would ensure our country's national security by verifying the operability of the missile guidance system of a Trident nuclear warhead. And then by night, he would grill hot dogs for the Wildcat Booster Club. Jim was totally devoid of ego, and his brilliance came with zero pretentiousness. To know Jim was to love Jim. The enormity of Jim's legacy is matched only by the feeling of emptiness and disbelief that he's no longer with us. But as Alfred Lord Tennyson wrote, "'Tis better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all." Likewise, to lose Jim is devastating, but far better than not having had the honor of knowing him at all. I think of Jim like my favorite movie. You never get tired of it. Each time you watch it, you learn something new, and you're always left wanting more. Godspeed, Jim Caden. Our loss is heaven's gain. We love you, and we'll do a moment of silence in your memory. Thank you. That was an amazing, I know, and we have a communication from Jim's wife that we'll get to later on. There was an amazing outpouring from the community over the weekend and Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and just a testament to the impact that he had on this district. And there's just so many things. We covered some of them, but his impact was really statewide. He was named Advocate of the Year statewide. He was on the Nassau-Suffolk School Boards Association. He was most recently on the Western Suffolk BOCES Board of Education. He was on the Town of Huntington's Economic Development Corporation. He was a community advocate first and foremost, and he leaves a long legacy. And at his gravesite, they talked about the best way to honor people that have passed is to keep them alive, is by mentioning them and talking about them and sharing stories. And Jim left everyone with a lifetime of memories and famous Cadenism sayings that people will never forget. So it'll be easy to keep Jim's legacy alive as this building is named after him, which I think is a really great tribute. And I think it's always wonderful to honor people while they're alive to see it. It means so much more. And that moment 6 years ago, I know meant a lot to Jim, and obviously it was well deserved. So it's a very tough time. He's not somebody who can be easily forgotten, but I know he would want us to continue to make this district great, and that would be what he would be most proud of. We talked often, and he was very happy with the direction of the district, and that's a great legacy to everybody that's up here. And, you know, he's like, things are going well. And from Jim, that's about as much as a compliment as you would get. He wasn't necessarily big on compliments, but he was a compassionate person who cared about people and who would check up on you. And he loved his family. He loved Deb. He loved his 2 sons and his unborn grandson. And he loved the school district. And he loved the institution of the Board of Education. That was very important to him, that the Board of Education be run in the proper manner, and that the duties and responsibilities of the board be carried out in a good manner, as well as ensuring our fiscal viability. Jim was a fiscal expert. If you called him while he was at work, one minute he was working on things for missiles or guidance systems, the next minute he was making budgetary charts, and that's just the kind of brain that he had, and he was just an amazing person to know. And as I said, to know Jim is to love Jim, and he lays a huge hole in everyone's heart, and it will for a long time to come. Okay. So we continue. Actually, I'm going to read Deb's letter now because it kind of goes into our first presentation. I didn't know how to. I was going to leave it for communications, but it kind of goes into the work that Dr. Murphy is going to be talking about in a few moments. So this was hand-delivered by his wife, Debbie, earlier today. Dear Nick, members of the Board of Education, Dr. D'Elia and Cabinet, please convey the Caden family's gratitude for recognizing Jim's service on the occasion of his passing. Jim genuinely believed in the mission to educate all children to become the most productive citizens of this great country humanly possible. In that light, the family thanks and congratulates you for achieving progress in lowering the achievement gap in Jim's lifetime. From day one, that was his core priority. Seeing that come to fruition and learning that we were adding a grandson to our family were 2 tremendous sources of joy for him. The support the Caden family has received from the Long Island educational community, especially the South Huntington Board, administrative teachers, staff, parents, and alumni, is very much appreciated. Sincerely, Deb Adams Caden. And that's kind of the work that we're going to talk about now when we talk about our AP and our Regents report card and how we have closed that gap and become a premier district on the island. Dr. Murphy, I turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Ciapetta, Dr. D'Elia, members of the board and cabinet. I just want to talk a little bit about the amazing work that's been going on at Walt Whitman High School. I'd be remiss to say this has been an ongoing project for the last 10 years, and really students, teachers, and administrators have been at the crux of this and really working towards making sure we're making those positive gains and the things that Jim Caden talked about. So just to understand and give a sense of why this is so important and why these accomplishments are something of note, is we have to really look at our district. So currently we have 5,700 students, kindergarten through 12th grade, and we're a very diverse population. As you mentioned on the top, we walk, talk, and look like America. This is something that we don't shy away from. We see value in it, and we show that all students, regardless of their backgrounds, can be successful. Just to give some aspects of that diversity, 18% of our students that come to us are English language learners, meaning they're monolingual and only speak language other than English. In addition to that, 14% of our students are students with disabilities, which means they have an IEP, and 55% of our students across the district are economically disadvantaged, or means they live below the poverty line. We have 3 main languages, which is Spanish, Haitian Creole, and Urdu, and these are some of the top languages, although we speak in this district over 20 languages within our community. So one of the things we've changed, and this has really been a district initiative, and it was something we're going to focus on the high school right now, is to stop saying, to bring positives when we're talking about deficiencies with some of our students. We don't say achievement gap anymore, we say opportunity gap. And the difference is that we find the opportunities for our students to excel. How can we make opportunities for ourselves to find focus so that we can make sure students are rising to the occasion? So some of these opportunities is our poverty rate. Now, although some can see it as a negative, we look at it as, okay, we can make all students achieve and to such a high standard regardless of where they live in the poverty line. We also, with the increase in amount of English language learners, 30% just at the high school alone over the last 10 years, we can still make sure that our students, our AP and our Regents results rates continue to rise and go high, and that we see students going into college and post-secondary institutions even more. So once we've identified these opportunities, here are the achievements we've been able to do in the last 10 years. 22% of the amount of AP exams given, we've increased. We have a 100% increase in the total amount of students taking AP courses or exams. And this is despite, as we mentioned, an increase in the students, or an increase in our diversity. The amount of students, or students of color, black students, taking exams has doubled in the last 5 years. And there are 40% more Hispanic students taking AP exams in the last 5 years. And despite these increases, and despite the differences in the amount of the differences that students have in taking AP or advanced level coursework, we still average 70% of them achieving a 3 or greater, which means they get college credit, and it is seen as a passing score by College Board. Just to give perspective of the numbers we were talking about, this gives you a 10-year scenario in terms of AP exams, and we'll get into Regents in a little bit. And I'll go through some of them. I don't want to go through all the numbers, but I just want to look at the bottom numbers and the top numbers. So in 2014, we had 400 students. And we were less diverse 10 years ago than we are today. So we had 400 students taking AP exams with 674 total exams. If you move up to 2024, that number of 400 has moved to 754, almost doubling. In addition to that, we've more than doubled with 674 tests in 2014. We now offer we will be offering 1,412 tests come this June of 2024. And if you look at the far right corner, our passing rate really has not deviated and has maintained itself despite the overwhelming increases in the amount of students taking advanced level coursework. And this is important to staff, this is important to students, is because we are saying everyone can be successful. If we give them the tools and the tools and support necessary, no matter what student sits in front of us, they can achieve at a high level. And this is something that our district has prided itself on, that our teachers have worked tirelessly for, and it is really a testament to the students and teachers that have worked this hard over the last 10 years. To give a perspective in terms of, we were just identified, Dr. Steele and I, along with some of the other administration in the summer, went to Seattle because we were asked by College Board to present, because we have a significant increase in the number of students of color taking AP and advanced level coursework. And just to give perspective of that, just in the last 5 years, that number, and this graph shows you, is that we've almost nearly tripled the amount of Hispanic students, or Hispanic students taking tests at AP and the AP level, or advanced level, and doubled the amount of students, black students taking an AP course or an AP test, at the high school in the last couple of years. So these are things that even College Board has identified us in saying, you are moving the bar forward. You are making sure that all students are successful in terms of being able to reach and take college level coursework before they leave your hallways. Now, COVID has been is taken quite a toll on our Regents results and just Regents in general, and with New York State even looking at revamping Regents, and they've had blue ribbon studies. But just to give perspective, so I've given a graph since 2014 and beyond. When COVID hit us, we were continually increasing and improving on our Regents results in terms of all students being successful. And COVID hit, and we saw some discrepancies and some shortcomings, but that is something over the last 2 years that has been worked upon, and I can say with confidence that we are starting to turn the tide in students. We are getting back to the 2018-19 success rates and numbers in terms of passing rates for students in all Regents results. One of note that we are taking a focused attention on this year is our geometry Common Core exam. We don't feel that we're really making the milestones or benchmarks that we want to, and this is something that we'll be working with myself, Dr. Murphy, and the entire math department, just to make sure that we're giving it the attention it deserves so that we can see the gains and we can get back to pre-COVID in terms of our success rates. These success rates are the reasons why our students, where 91% of our students that leave Walt Whitman High School are going to college, and that we have such, and again, our diversity, and we have about a 93% graduation rate, despite the amount of ELL and special education students that we service. All of them are either going to college, or graduating, and even going to post-secondary schools. So this is something we're identifying in all core subject areas. As I said, as we've moved the dial and gotten back to levels that we were in 2018 and 19 before COVID and Regents, our mastery rates have suffered because we've been focusing so much in making sure we're addressing these gaps to make sure all students are successful. And these are something that the department chairs, the supervisors will be focused on greatly. So as I mentioned, geometry is something, the overall passing rate. Looking at some of these overall mastery rates, we want to make sure that we're getting them back to where we know the students, because it's not just about having them pass or just doing good enough. We want them to excel and do the best they possibly can. So these are just something that we want to share with the Board of Education and the community to say we identify these are areas that we're going to be doing better on, and these are some of the data we're utilizing to make sure that we're addressing the areas needed. Some things we're very proud about, and I wanted to just take some snapshots, is I wanted to show our special education, particularly special education and our E&L students. So we've put a lot of effort, a lot of our ARP funding, and a lot of teachers, sweat and tears came into making sure we were identifying some of our struggling populations to make sure that they were rising to the occasion and being successful. And what we like to see is that, as we showed in the graph before, the students will focus on special education, is the passing rates for our students with special needs or IEP mirror or very closely resemble all students in terms of the overall passing rate. And that's something that we want to say because we want to make sure that all students, regardless of your designation or identified as a student with special needs, that we're giving the support in order to make sure that they're just as successful as every student around. So that was something we saw. One of the highlights we saw is living environment is a focus point for us, that we're giving that's this year's goal, is that we're going to be giving some extra attention to make sure we're seeing the same successes in all the other subject areas with special education. In terms of E&L, as we see an influx and continued increase in students, we are seeing more students with interrupted education, or what we call SIFE students, so they're coming in with very little or no education. As we see that increase, we need to make sure we're giving those supports so they're just as successful as we've seen in years past. And we've done a good job within our earth science, living environment, and our U.S. history and Algebra 1. And despite their deficiencies, they're still passing at overwhelming rates. Some of the focus, because you can't focus on everything, so we wanted to take two areas that we're going to focus on particularly within E&L, and that's our global studies and English Common Core, where we're going to make sure that we're giving that support so that we see success there. So what did we learn over these last 10 years? And these are very important because we can use all the data in the world, we can talk about data, but what do we actually extract from the data, what do we learn, and how do we move forward? So some of the things that we've learned is being open to the possibilities of student success, making sure that we're not limiting through our own use of data or through our own biases or understandings of what we can do, is making sure we're listening to everybody in the room, that we're listening to students, we're listening to teachers, and that we're finding a pathway where every student, because as the numbers and as our statistics show, we can find a pathway for success for every student. One of the other things is ongoing support and professional development. Just because you're successful, we learned that from COVID. Just because you're successful today doesn't mean you're going to be successful tomorrow. And education and students are ever changing, and their needs are ever changing. So we need to make sure that when we review this data with AP and Regents, that we're taking this and saying, okay, where can we move else? Where can we improve upon our current successes and our current failures? Feedback and buy-in from everyone. At the high school level, we listen to everybody from student government to teachers to administrators to say, how are we going to make sure that they feel they're a part of the process so that we are all working together towards making sure that we find the successes that we know we can within student achievement. One of the things, and I have to thank the Board of Education and Dr. D'Elia and I was happy to be a part of, is I'd say creative scheduling is the key, and we've kind of opened that door with the 9-period day. So we're providing a lot more support services, especially those highlighted areas that we talked about, where we're making sure students are getting really intensive and focused remediation. So I'm very confident between the dedication of our teachers and the extra time we're able to give that we're going to see those positive gains where I highlighted. Articulation between the intermediate, middle, and high school, identifying not only our high achieving students and students that we want to see in AP, but also the students that need that extra support, to make sure that we're giving them the tools so that they're not just getting to high school and at a deficit or at a deficient on the basic skills to make sure that they can pass Regents or their assessments. So it's really that conversation between the intermediate, Silas, Stimson, and the high school, so that we're all on the same page and teachers are talking to other teachers on the successes and failures they've found in the present so that we can make changes for the future. The other thing is, create supports that fit the needs of your student body. We see, especially at the high school, is that students work. Some of our students are supporting themselves or their families. So how do we make sure we're giving them those supports so that they're successful in those exams? And that really goes in with the 9-period day. If everybody could be after school, maybe they don't have busing, maybe they have to work, they're looking after their younger brothers and sisters, but that's not going to fix it to make sure that they're successful and graduate high school. So we have to find ways to make sure we're going to make them successful. And last but not least is continuing to focus on learning gaps. As we mentioned, we're going to address other gaps and some gaps, and other gaps will pop up. And it's really just having an evolving mindset to make sure that we're identifying where we need to improve from year to year. And because of that work, the teachers, the Board of Education, the administrators have been able to do, as it showed in the graphs, we really have made monumental gains, where now we've gotten that state and national recognitions to say we are a district that's really identifying and having honest conversations to make sure that our students are successful. I appreciate your time, and if you have any questions, please let me know.
Questions for Dr. Murphy? Great, thank you, Dr. Murphy. Important work, and appreciate always looking to take us to the next level. Though we'll see how much longer we can improve on Regents exams, because might not be around too much longer. All right, move into our
It's just a small comment.
yeah. Move into our business. Adoption of the agenda. Is there a motion? Mr. Joyner, seconded by Ms. LaCara. Any questions on the agenda? All in favor? Any opposed? All right. Items E through H require one resolution for adoption. Those are our minutes from July, financial items, no bids, and our bills. Motion. Mr. Bronson, seconded by Ms. Meyer. Any questions? All in favor? Any opposed? All right. Communications are listed. We got a number of communications. We received correspondence from a parent in the district, John Macaluso. He wrote to Dr. D'Elia and myself, and he wanted to thank Dr. D'Elia and the Board of Education for establishing a pilot late bus program at Stimson Middle School. He said that he feels it was long overdue. It'll benefit the students in South Huntington, and he is hopeful the plan will be extended to the high school. Thank you for your continued efforts, and to the Board of Education for unanimously approving this recommendation. I'm going to turn over item 2 of communications to Dr. D'Elia.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Ciapetta. Obviously, last week was a very difficult week for all of us here in South Huntington, but we did receive some extremely good news. I don't know if you remember, about a year and a half ago, NYSBA, New York State School Boards Association, gave us a banner that they don't give out too frequently at all regarding our Animatage tables, and that was about less than a year and a half ago. Well, they contacted us last week, and we're getting another banner. So our seniors, our students in the life skills program at the high school, with their bracelet initiative, I believe they noticed it on News 12, and they thought very highly enough to give us another banner. So on October 25th, there'll be a representative from NYSBA that will be here to hand us the banner for incredible work done by those students. And also, I would like to, also highlight teacher Ms. Corinne McLaughlin for all her work with that. So, wow, 2 banners in a year and a half is it's a pretty big deal. And I echo what Nick said earlier about Mr. Caden saying we're going in the right direction, and this is evidence why. So, we're very proud.
Thank you, Dr. D'Elia, for sharing that news. Great news. And we'll balance our banners back there, so we'll have a second one.
And the pool.
We have correspondence from Dr. Joe Senamore. I don't believe he's here to read his letter. Expressing his sympathies on the loss of Jim Caden. I'm writing to express my sincerest condolences and deepest sympathies during this time of sorrow as you mourn the passing of our beloved James Caden. I was fortunate to have worked with Mr. Caden in my tenure at South Huntington Schools and considered him to be a mentor and a friend. Mr. Caden was so passionate and committed to bettering the students' educational experience at South Huntington Schools, which I admired so much about him. His depth of knowledge and ability to speak to everyone without pretense and with respect and dignity is what set Mr. Caden apart from the rest. I am forever grateful to him for taking me under his wing when I got to South Huntington and allowing me to learn from such a kind, unassuming, yet brilliant man. My deepest condolences go out to Deb Caden, their sons, and family. Although Mr. Caden's time on this earth was too short, I hope you're able to take some comfort in the wonderful memories that you shared with him and his many contributions to the South Huntington School District. May your faith, love, and support for one another provide you with all strength and inner peace at this sad time. Sincerely, Dr. Joe Centimore. Thank you, Dr. Centimore. It's a beautiful letter. Very appreciated. And as I mentioned before, we had a fourth piece of correspondence from Ms. Caden, which I read earlier. We'll move into our new business agenda. Item number 1 is the approval of the tax levy for the 2023-2024 school year. Is there a motion? Mr. Bronson, seconded by Mr. Joyner. Mr. Conway.
All right, so tonight up for the board's approval, we're asking to set the tax rate, which varies from the levy based on assessed valuation of each property. Each year, as part of the budget development process, we need to provide an educated guess of what the tax rate, the individual tax rate would be for the average homeowner. We do that based on trend analysis, historical look back of data, etc. So last week we heard from the town of Huntington that the overall assessed valuation for the 23-24 tax roll came in slightly higher than our estimated numbers at the spring, which is a favorable result for the taxpayer. Approximately $18 per 1,000 of assessed valuation savings versus what we had expected at budget time. Again, every home is different based on their assessed valuation, but overall, all in all, it's in favor of the taxpayer.
And so, Mr. Conway, if I'm reading this correctly, the new tax rate is 1.56%. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
We had expected or guesstimated at 2.18 at the budget development time.
It's interesting that 260,000 lowers the tax rate 0.6%. It's has a big correlation with it, the assessed valuation.
Sure.
All right, so that's good news for the taxpayer.
Yes.
Questions? All in favor? Any opposed? All right. Moving on to item number 2 is the approval of settlement and release for a matter of litigation. South Huntington Union Free School District versus Dream Tree Academy Incorporated. Motion. Ms. LaCara, seconded by Mr. Bronson. Dr. D'Elia?
Yes, when the South Huntington School District owned the old library property, we did have a tenant, which was Dream Tree Academy. Some of the rent fell into arrears, so we were able to work out an agreement through our legal counsel, and we came up with a payment plan to take care of partial repayment of what was owed to us.
Questions? All in favor? Any opposed? All right, moving on to new business. Item number 3 is approval of a leadership conference for Dr. D'Elia. Is there a motion? Mr. Joyner, seconded by Ms. Meyer. So this is for Dr. D'Elia to attend the Fall Leadership Summit in early October at Saratoga Springs. Any questions? All in favor? Any opposed? All right, moving on to new business. Item number 4 is the approval of a memorandum of agreement for UPSEU Local 424 Security Unit. Motion? Mr. Bronson, seconded by Ms. LaCara. There he is. Looking around for you. Mr. Smith, can you tell us a little about the MOA?
Absolutely, Mr. Ciapetta. For the board's approval is this memorandum of agreement. It speaks to a 5-year contract that brings us all the way to 2028. And it keeps the salaries competitive with the rising minimum wage.
Any questions? All in favor? Any opposed? All right, moving on to new business. Item number 5. We in this next section, we have a number of special education agreements. This is a stipulation agreement. Is there a motion? Mr. Joyner, seconded by Ms. Meyer. This was discussed in executive session. It's a settlement and agreement and release for a student to attend an out-of-district placement. Any questions? All in favor? Any opposed? All right, moving on to item number 6 is the approval of a contract for an out-of-district placement with the Gersh Academy. Is there a motion? Ms. LaCara, seconded by Ms. Meyer. Dr. Fulton, can you just tell us a little about the placement?
Yes, sir. So this is for placement at the Gersh Academy. It's a one-year agreement for a particular student who, for this 1 year, the smaller class size and the setting in this private school is appropriate, which will be reviewed again at annual review.
Thank you. It was discussed in executive session as well. Any questions? All in favor? Any opposed? Moving on to item number 7, is there a motion? Ms. LaCara, seconded by Mr. Bronson. This is another approval at the Gersh Academy for one student, discussed in executive session. Any questions? All in favor? Any opposed? All right, moving on to new business, item number 8, another approval of an out-of-district placement. This with the Cerebral Palsy Association of Nassau County. Motion. Ms. Meyer, seconded by Mr. Bronson. Dr. Fulton, can you tell us about this placement?
Yes, so this placement is for a student who has attended prior to this year, where another placement was not available for this student. The student best meets the physical and intellectual needs of this individual student.
Okay. Any questions? All in favor? Any opposed? Moving on to new business item number 9, another approval of an out-of-district placement for a student with the Hagedorn Little Village School Jack Joel Center for Special Children. Motion. Ms. Meyer, seconded by Ms. LaCara. Dr. Fulton?
So this student has been attending this placement the past few years. There has not yet been another placement where the student has been accepted, so this is a private placement for the student for the year and will be reviewed again at annual review.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Discussed in executive session. All in favor? Any opposed? And moving on to our last out-of-district placement, item number 10 with the Whitney Academy. Do I have a motion? Mr. Bronson, seconded by Ms. LaCara. Dr. Fulton, your last one.
Yes, so this is a placement that was secured. It's a residential placement. The student will be attending a residential placement that is out of state, and this is the most appropriate placement where the educational and clinical services of the student will be met for this year, but always going to be reviewed again at annual review.
Great, thank you. All in favor? Any opposed? All right, moving on to new business. Item number 9, various confidentiality and data security and privacy agreements. Is there a motion? Ms. LaCara, seconded by Ms. Meyer. Dr. Steele?
Yes, we have a few agreements here tonight. We have from Storyboard, Wilson Language, and Smarty Ants, which will support English language arts instruction. Delta Math to support math instruction. GimKit, which is classroom games that show students how to invest currency. Albert I.O., which is AP, ACT, SAT test prep. Soundation supports music instruction, and Jostin's Class Rings. We also have an agreement from What's the Move app, which is an app we are vetting in the high school right now, trying to launch, which will be one-stop shopping, so to speak, for parents. There'll be various communications there, clubs, announcements, and transportation information, including GPS tracking for busing.
Great. Any questions? All in favor? Any opposed? So you mentioned some good things there to come. All right, new business item 12 is the approval of a memorandum of understanding with the Girls Inc. program. Is there a motion? Mr. Bronson, seconded by Mr. Joyner. Dr. D'Elia?
Yes, we've been involved with Girls Inc. for numerous years, and it's been a wonderful program. And thank you to Mr. Joyner for recommending this program. Our girls have benefited tremendously from it. It's empowering them to be leaders. Mr. Duggan, myself, and Mr. Toto were at an award ceremony last spring for Girls Inc., honoring South Huntington as a school of distinction. So we know we're taking full advantage of this program, and it has been working very well with our community.
Thank you, Dr. D'Elia. Any questions? All in favor? Any opposed? All right, moving on to new business item 13. We have approval of a donation for a 70-inch television. Motion. Mr. Bronson, seconded by Mr. Joyner. Dr. D'Elia?
Yes, David Savasio, a regional sales manager of Sharp Electronics, is generously donating a 70-inch Sharp television that we intend on using here within our help program. The donation has a value of almost $5,000. So it's not a Costco TV.
No. Wow. Beautiful.
I'm not putting it down. I have a Costco TV, so
Yeah, that's an expensive TV.
it's
Wow,
it's a high-end television.
definitely beautiful. Okay. Any questions? All in favor? Any opposed? Maybe I can get him to donate me a television like that. Beautiful. Okay, and item 14 is recommendations for placements by the committees on special education and preschool special education, dates listed in April, June, July, and August. Motion. Mr. Bronson, seconded by Mr. Joyner. Any questions? All in favor? Any opposed? All right. Moving on to new business item number 15, and this is a discussion of the New York State School Board Association proposed resolutions for 2023, and this is in anticipation of the Nassau-Suffolk School Board Association annual dinner, resolutions dinner that's going to be held in, I believe, next week or the week after, where we discuss these resolutions. Nassau-Suffolk then votes on these resolutions, and they bring them to the annual the New York State School Board Association annual convention in October. So there's quite a bit of resolutions now. I won't bother everyone with all 56 of them. I guess we'll be here all night. And some are leftovers from previous years. Right now, some are recommended for approval by the Nassau-Suffolk School Board Association Committee. Then it goes to their legislative committee, and then it goes to the executive committee before coming to the whole Nassau-Suffolk at the dinner. Just run through a few that I found interesting, and we can discuss others if you like. Recommended resolution number 10. This is where the New York State School Board Association supports legislation to increase the earning limits for retired police and other law enforcement officers serving as school resource and safety officers. This is an interesting one because those individuals are capped. They can't make any more than $35,000 a year, though there's been recent waivers. But I think the thought is, with safety being in the forefront, this would allow school districts to be able to recruit better. So that's an interesting one that's supported right now. Take a look at Resolution 11, also interested me. New York State School Board Association opposes any legislative or regulatory effort to grant tenure status to non-instructional school employees. And I think this is coming out of a bill that's made its way through the New York State legislature, where they want to give non-instructional employees tenure rights. And most everyone thinks that would be a disaster for school districts because they already have Section 75 protections. So adding tenure to that would be not necessarily favorable to management. So they support that resolution. Resolution 19 I thought was interesting. This is and it kind of goes with the companion resolution number 36. We'll talk about them both at once. This is a hot issue right now, and this is the zero emission school vehicle mandate, which is requiring by 2027 you to purchase zero emission buses, and by 2035 to have your entire fleet zero emission. Nobody really thinks that this is realistic, either from it's not feasible and the time frame is too short. Nobody thinks we have the technology in place or the infrastructure or the funds, because electric buses are about 3 to 4 times the cost of a regular bus right now. So Resolution 19 is supported by the Nassau-Suffolk Legislation Committee. They're recommending that the state conduct feasibility studies on zero emission school vehicle mandate. Resolution 36, though, which was put forth by the McCraw School Board, goes a little further. It supports the repeal of the zero emission law, that all school vehicles be zero emissions. So that, for some reason, the committee did not support. They supported the study, but not the repeal of the law. Interested in letting people's thoughts on that one, because we do have a vote at the convention, of course, as well as at the dinner. So anyone have any thoughts as to study versus repeal of this?
I mean, I think the idea of having, for global warming and everything else, that the idea of having, zero emissions vehicles in the future, I think is probably the right move. It's just more a question of feasibility and timeline, and, you have to have the infrastructure and everything else. So I think, just like many things, it might need to be delayed, but I think just foregone probably is not the right answer in the long run, in my opinion.
Other thoughts? Anyone else?
The burden that's incurred by school districts is a concern, and the timing is an issue as well. So, I mean, hopefully they have a longer timeline.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually think they should do the feasibility study with pushing the state back, because 2027 is really,
it's really
that's
close.
close. That's around the corner, and we're nowhere, maybe when they pass this, they thought we'd be there, but we're not there.
Yeah.
We're not close to being there.
And then the costs are up for those buses. I mean,
Yeah,
they're
we'd have to,
astronomical.
yeah, we'd have to bond just for buses, so. Okay. Number 20, this was also an interesting one, and kind of gave a preview of this during Dr. Murphy's presentation. This is put forth by the Hewlett, Woodmere, and Sachem school boards, and resolved that the New York State School Board Association supports legislation to eliminate Regents exam testing at the high school level in favor of state final exams that comply with Every Student Succeeds Act in regulations in the 10th and 11th grade for ELA 1 exam, Math 1 exam, and Science 1 exam. Their rationale is New York is one of only 7 states that still require students to pass exams to receive a high school diploma. The others are Illinois, Louisiana, Massachusetts, Texas, Virginia, and Wyoming. And also that ESSA provides guidance to states to reduce standardized testing when it was introduced by President Obama in 2015. I'm actually totally opposed to this resolution, but Dr. Murphy, I'd like to hear your thoughts on it. I see you shaking your head, so.
Thank you for the notice. All right. Really, in all honesty, I am an advocate for Regents. I think there's a reason why we have such a high college rate in all districts across New York State. I think there needs to be changes, and we need to look, and I think the Blue Ribbon Study is going to give us some information. I do not, I think that I'd rather have the Blue Ribbon come out and see what their thoughts are before giving really an opinion on, or giving anything or support of anything, to see where their mindset is in terms of how they're going to address all our subgroups to make sure that everybody's successful.
Yeah, the resolution doesn't make sense at this point, right?
No.
Because
You're putting the cart before the horse. I'd like to see, they've spent 3 years. It probably would have been a little less, because they started this, and I was at BOCES when they started this Blue Ribbon Study, and then COVID happened. So I think I'm kind of interested in what across the state, what people are saying, and then kind of get an opinion there, and then see if we agree with it as far as a region and as a district, to see if it's something that we value and we put ourselves behind.
Other thoughts from the board? Mr. Joyner? Yep. Okay. Everybody can agree? Okay. Good. Gives us some guidance when we go in. Let's see what else. 25 was interesting to me. By the Guilderland School Board, I don't know where that is. Support legislation at the state level allow school districts whose pre-kindergarten programs are oversubscribed to show enrollment preference to students who would be eligible for free and reduced lunch and/or English language learners. That's interesting. I could see that being very, very contentious, because essentially you're making these decisions based on income. That's contentious. I don't know about that one. Their rationale is that studies have shown that while all students benefit from early childhood education, access to early childhood education can be game-changing for high-needs students. Sure, definitely. However, districts are not permitted to show enrollment preference to those students who need and would mostly greatly benefit from the program until such time as the universal pre-kindergarten program is truly universal, with an available seat for every interested and eligible family. Districts should be permitted to take steps to enroll those students with the greatest need. I don't know. That's interesting. Who's to say that they have the greatest need? There could be other people who are behind. So I don't know. That one troubles me. Other thoughts?
Haven't we historically used when we've been oversubscribed for programs, this hasn't been more of like a lottery, like just a random program? I'm supportive of, from a process standpoint, I kind of like just that approach. I wish I had the space for everybody in all programs, but when we don't, I like the randomization of a lottery or a program.
Yeah. Okay. Everybody seems to agree. Yeah, I think that's a strange one. It's surprised the committee supports that. I also sit on the Nassau Suffolk Executive Committee, so we're meeting actually tomorrow. We'll go through each one of these. That's a long meeting. Wish me luck. Resolve 27, that the New York State School Board Association supports legislation that amends the current civil service system to bring it up to date with changes to the duties potential employees will be assigned. And then, interesting one for you, Mr. Smith, they make a lot of recommendations here. Most people think the current civil service system is really broken, and whether it works at all, I mean, for particular tests, often these tests have nothing to do with the particular job at all. So, and the district is forced to choose the top 3. So some of the things that they're saying is to give more flexibility, increase the amount of refusals per job, and better align the job descriptions with the tests. So, and to simplify the canvassing process. So, things that was put forth by Plainview Old Bethpage. 36 we already talked about. 39, this is interesting. This one affects the Board of Education. So the Newark School Board, don't know where that is either, they want the New York State School Board Association to support a law for each board member to attain 6 hours of professional development each year after they complete the mandated training. This is not recommended. I mean, I think it's probably good intention, but they're saying it's already hard enough to get board members to run. And they already have mandated training, and then lumping another 6 hours on top of that each year in addition to all their meetings, they think that's a bit much. So, any thoughts on that one? What did they took no position on that, right? No, they took no position. 43 is an interesting one. This would puts forth by Plattsburgh, East Williston, and Malone school boards. This would cost money for the districts for sure. Resolve the New York State School Board Association work with the New York State Legislature and members to call on the legislator to improve Tier 6 for school employees and seek support and legislation to establish tier equity for Tier 5 and 6 to be more aligned with Tiers 1 through 4. That's not recommended because this could have a big financial impact on school districts for sure. I mean, the whole reason for creating the Tier 5 and 6 was to give relief and turnover and then breakage when people retired. So it seems it's being counterproductive. A number of controversial ones that come up, including 46, resolution by Massapequa, and they have a lot of these in here, Carl Place, Garden City, Island Trees, Locust Valley, and Sachem, to advocate for the reinstatement of the religious exemption to immunization. It's obviously been contentious for a number of years, made its way through the courts, and the elimination of that exemption has been upheld at each turn. Wasn't really necessarily being a religious exemption, it ended up being more of a moral exemption. That's not supported by the committee. And 2 others I flagged, 53. This one really doesn't affect us, but it's been certainly in the news. Put forth by Massapequa again. They've got a lot of them. Carl Place and Island Trees to work together with affected schools to rescind or modify the Board of Regents policy regarding school mascots and imagery. We've seen this a lot with Native American imagery. It's been a lot of districts have changed their logos throughout. Massapequa, I think, is holding firm, fighting with the Chiefs. It's been interesting. Some names are okay if it's not necessarily paired with a derogatory mascot, so some people have been able to keep those. For Massapequa, I know Chiefs is very important to their community. Others, it's a cost difference because these images could be on the terrazzo floor or the turf field, and it's incredibly expensive to remove it. So that was not recommended for support. And last one to talk about, I like this one. This one's interesting. Submitted by the Hicksville School Board. Resolve the New York State School Board Association to support legislation at the state level to set limits on the start times for schools to be no earlier than 8 a.m. It's an interesting one. They don't rationale. This has come up recently. California, I believe, actually passed a law like this. Their rationale is extremely early school start times are detrimental to a student's learning and health. According to the American Academy of Pediatricians, inadequate sleep can lead to obesity, diabetes, increased anxiety, depression, cognitive impairment, memory problems, and drowsy driving. Ultimately, these issues impact academic achievement and graduation rates. Given that districts must coordinate their schedules for extracurricular activities, including sports, this is not a decision that can be successfully implemented at the local level. New York State must set limits on the start times for schools to be no earlier than 8 a.m., and that was supported by Hicksville, but not by the committee. Board, have any thoughts on that?
What, wasn't this directed towards high school students?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's early. I think it shows that those students, their body's going through so many changes. They stay
Right.
up later and then get up earlier. Sounds like me too. I'm going to stay up late and get up early. Any thoughts on this one? This is an interesting one. Dr. Murphy, what do you think?
I mean, I'm sorry. Northport has a little bit of a later start. Biologically, it makes sense. The problem is you're going to have with sports and really other districts following, depending on how late your times and what your adjustments are. So I'm an early bird, so I like getting up early. So, but I mean, kids dragging it, they're not really awake until later periods, so it makes sense. But really, a lot more schools than just one have to kind of follow through with it. In order
Yeah, I
for
think
it
that's
to be
what they're saying.
successful.
Yeah, they have to do it everywhere.
It just Northport has a little bit later, and and I think it helps them a little bit, but it's a struggle for their transportation and their athletic schedules because of it. So, I mean, you need more than just one doing it or a couple doing it. You need really kind of all to follow suit.
Obviously, we're seeing bus problems nationwide even now. Interesting. I mean, 8 a.m. is not such a big change. I think it wouldn't affect the school.
It's not
sports too
terrible.
much.
It just a little bit for. I mean, some sports you'll shift a little bit, but it also depends on how, do you have your own buses or if you're how many you're renting out or you're securing, and then it kind of dictates on if what your times, how it would help or how if it wouldn't help you.
What time do the Catholic schools start? Do they start later? Or?
Catholic school starts at 8. I think it's a little later. Yes.
Okay.
I think I think all of them start later because they transport also from, you can be 20, 30 miles away, so they start a little bit later because of their transportation schedules.
Yeah, on my train in the morning, all the Chaminade kids are on there, and that train gets to Mineola at like 8:30. I'm like, what time do they start?
Those Chaminade people are
They
terrible.
maybe they just come late. So, any other thoughts on this one? Ms. Meyer, what do you think?
I think from a mental health perspective, the additional sleep, even if it's only for a half an hour, I think one of the things that COVID showed as we were continuing to focus more and more on mental health and social emotional health is the critical element that a significant amount of rest and sleep really plays. So maybe this is something that we can study a little bit further in the Wellness Committee. I know we have the vote coming up soon, but just so that we have our own data and can collect, and if this comes back up at a later date, we can make a more informed decision on it. But I do think that the later start time would have a significant benefit on our students.
Yeah, I do too. I agree. I support the change. Okay. Do you support this resolution, or you want to study more? What do you think?
I mean, I've seen other data out there. I don't know if they've done kind of an A/B type of study with students on later start times, and how much later would you have to go to actually have an impact. I would definitely support the resolution. I'm sure research went in here, but I think we should do our due diligence and gather as much data as we can on our own as well.
What does everybody else think?
Yeah, I was going to say I'd want to review what the time is. And if you asked my kids, they would even say 10 a.m. is early. So I don't know, from 7:30 to 8, I'm not too sure. But I agree. I think if you research it and there's a value to it, it's worth it pursuing.
Ms. LeCow, what do you think? Okay. Mr. Joyner?
More research.
Great. Anyone else have any others? Tried to highlight some of the more interesting ones.
Mr. Ciapetta, if I may, I think one of
Yeah.
the ones that I found very interesting, especially given our district's focus on safety, is resolution number 37, resolved that the New York State School Boards Association support legislation that would reduce the required number of lockdown drills conducted each year. And they've cited here some information about it causing a significant amount of stress and anxiety, which interrupts learning. But for me, where I found, and I agree with that, but I think where I'm struggling with this particular resolution and the rationale is that it's saying that there is little evidence that these drills achieve desired outcomes. I think desired outcomes are just less school shootings in general. We can't control that with lockdown drills. And they talk about less traumatic interventions, but none of these interventions that they're mentioning are actually crisis preparation. These are talking more about intervention, which I think we've been on top of from a social, emotional, and behavioral perspective. So I'm not in favor of reducing the number of lockdown drills because I think the rationale is the same with fire drills. It's about muscle memory and in a crisis situation, already having gone through the motion a number of times so that you're not instructing people at a time of crisis. You're just, reminding them what needs to be done. And if we reduce the number of drills, as we have students that come in throughout the year, they may miss the opportunity to participate in a lockdown drill entirely then if they're new to the district or new to the building. And I think that could cause a tremendous danger to themselves, to their classmates, and to the building. So even if this passes, and I'm not in favor of us voting for this, I think that as a district, we should consider what our number of appropriate lockdown drills is, even if it's more than the state requirement.
What do you think, Dr. D'Elia?
I'm not sure why we still do 8 fire drills a year. I'm going to be honest with you. I mean, how often school fires have happened have been few and far between, fortunately. I do agree that our children are all well versed by having these drills, and God forbid we should ever have a situation. I wouldn't look to reduce the 4 that we have. I think they're spread out enough, and I think the administrators and teachers do a great job of alleviating students' fears and concerns, and the students do a great job with this. So I don't know about, I wouldn't increase it, but I definitely wouldn't reduce it at the same time. I think we find the right balance. I just think fire drills are too excessive, if you want my honest opinion.
Other thoughts? I agree that doesn't seem to be a reason to reduce it at this point. So. Okay. Good. It's interesting though. I have a situation at work where we do all these drills and then actually had what they thought was a little fire, and didn't tell anybody what was happening. Nobody knew what was happening. So I'm like, you have all this practice, and when you actually have a situation, there was total chaos, and nobody knew whether to leave or not. So it's like, you just hope that doesn't happen. So but I think we're well prepared for these types of things. Any other resolutions anyone wants to highlight? Jaron, what do you think about school start times?
Well, first, I just want to say good evening, everybody, and and thank you for having me again. I think that definitely some good points were brought up. I think that even if I get 15 more minutes of sleep, that's tremendous. Mm-hmm. I tend to go to sleep 12, 12:30, sometimes even 1 a.m. because you have schoolwork to do, studying, and
it's late. Yeah, it's late,
and other things like that. And I think that a later start to school would be good and bad at the same time. I think that it would be good because, for the mental health perspective, you're getting more sleep. But at the same time, I like being able to get out at 2:10, and if I don't have a sport, go home and do my homework so I don't stay up as late. And on the other side, I play on the tennis team, and I really like being able to get out of there at 4:30 and not having to stay at school until 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. So I would say I like the school start time now. I'm not sure I would make it later, but if it was later, I would understand why.
What do you think about lockdown drills? What do you think about them? Do you think that they've got the right balance right now? Or?
Well, I totally agree with Dr. D'Elia. I think the amount of fire drills we have are very excessive. I've been in this district 13 years, so if you do the math, I've probably done hundreds of fire drills throughout my time here, and I think they're important. But I would say if we're going to increase anything, I would say we can increase the amount of lockdown drills, but reduce the amount of fire drills. I think we can make a compromise with that. I think lockdown drills, there are unfortunately, in this day and age, there are way too many unfortunate school shootings and different events that go on in schools, and the only way to ensure the safety of everybody in the school is to definitely practice for those situations. I would say we have the appropriate amount, but if there was more, I wouldn't be opposed to that.
Last one for you. What do you think about the regions?
I think that regions are personally, I consider myself to be a very good academic student. However, I'm not a great standardized test taker. I get very nervous, and I think it is detrimental to some students to show on one test what their capabilities are. So really, I would be in favor of maybe a different model. I think we definitely need a final model, maybe some sort of state testing, but I would say the way the regents are now, I am not in support of them. Thank you.
It's funny, the New York Times had an article about test-taking times and how the differences it makes in terms of SATs being done within a certain amount of time, not giving more credence to people who are actually taking a test quicker, but not making the right decisions. Whereas you're a deep thinker, you take a little bit more time to make your decisions. So there have been studies showing that they're going to expand test-taking times for SATs going forward, and I think that's pretty much interesting, and it could probably yield some good results.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Yeah, for me, I always did well in the Regents and in regular class tests, but the SATs and the ACTs, I struggled on those, and I do think it was like
The environment.
pressure of the time. You know
Right.
what I mean? Like you had a rush, and yeah.
Yeah, you had like 5 to 6 seconds to take each question, when most likely you did better if you had a little bit more time, and the studies kind of bear that out.
Yeah, that's a stressful situation too. There's so much rides on that,
And then as Jared was saying, if you're not a great test taker, should you be totally encapsulated in your abilities by just a test?
Right.
That's why it's, what is it, 7 states that are now doing this,
Yeah.
doing this?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing.
Yes, sir.
You'll find out in the first half of November. That's when the Blue Ribbon Commission reports to the commissioner.
I'd personally keep the Regents and get rid of the 3 through 8 testing. I think that's become a total joke. The 3 through 8 testing and how the states enforced it. Either make everybody take the exam, or you just get rid of them, and they're not making people take it, so they should just get rid of it. And because it's statistically useless at this point, the data that you get there, and only certain kids take it, and it tends to probably be some of our students who are emerging, and it just doesn't reflect well in the district or the teachers. So I think that should be gotten rid of. But that's not one of the resolutions, so that's my own soapbox. What's that? We can propose that one next year. Yeah, I actually had that. I didn't get around to writing one. I wanted to write one on the taxing anticipation notes for the state to get their act together to give us their state aid earlier than they do. I think that would solve a lot of problems. There is, though, I was contacted by Assemblyman Stern. He's putting forth a resolution that would help. It would allow the districts to go into certain reserves, to borrow from their reserves, to use for instead of going out on tax anticipation notes. So it would save us the interest. So that's good. I mean, I don't think that's the ultimate solution. The ultimate solution should be the state adopts their budget in early April, and they can get us the state aid payments earlier than after our school year starts, for sure. But I think Assemblyman Stearns is a good approach, better than nothing. So. Okay. So resolution dinner's coming up. I think it was a good discussion to discuss some of these pending issues in education. It's interesting. Okay. And moving on to our last item of new business, approval agreement between South Huntington and Scope for the 2023-2024 school year. Motion, Ms. Meyer, second. Mr. Bronson and Mr. Joyner. Dr. Steele. Good
Yes,
to hear from you.
from Regents to pre-K.
Oh, no, we already heard. Sorry.
We have our yearly agreement with Scope Educational Services that will support our UPK program. We are able to house 6 classes of UPK through Scope. We have 2 at Silaswood, 2 here at JKAO, 1 at Birchwood, and 1 at Maplewood. And through this agreement, this allows us to receive state funding to educate our 4-year-olds. And through this grant, it funds all aspects of the program: curriculum, teaching staff, and support staff. And this is, of course, for this school year.
Does this come later than normal this year, or?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
We need the contract for the grant, and the grant is due next week, so this is right on time.
Okay. And how are we doing with the pre-K this year?
They're doing great. They're off to a great start. We've filled every seat. So it's a good thing. With the lottery, it's upsetting for some families, but we are able to fill every seat that we have available.
Perfect. Thank you, Dr.
We're
Steele.
thinking about adding classes.
At this point, no. I don't know what the plan is for the future, but right now.
No, at this point, we don't have the classroom space. We would love to, because we do have the
That was a
funding.
space issue, right?
Yeah, it's a space
It's a
issue, because
space
we do have
issue.
the funding from the state.
But
we
I know
just-
the need is there. The need is there.
There is a
Right,
need
the
for
community.
another class, would you say, Dr. Steele?
There is a need. I mean, we do have, in addition to the scope classes, we do have the SHIP program, which is run through us, and a standalone UPK district-run class. But without the space, we just can't, find the seats. But with the amount of kids on the wait list, we would be able to fill another class.
Yeah, our space issues are something that we'll probably be speaking about very soon.
I was gonna say leave that to facilities committee.
Yeah, well, it's going to be the whole board as we try to,
I know.
because we've got portable issues and space issues and financial issues. So many issues all in one, and transportation. So they kind of all dovetail together. So stay tuned. Okay, personnel schedule. Oh, sorry. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, thank you, Dr. Steele. Personnel schedules 2, 6, 9, 10, 11, 13, 15, 16, 17, 20, and 22. There's a motion. Ms. LaCara, seconded by Mr. Bronson. Any questions? All in favor? Any opposed? All right, the Facilities Committee met on September 12th. It was our first meeting of the year. It was in anticipation of our facilities presentation, which we will be doing now on October 11th. We'll be presenting our summer work, which was kind of in two categories. It was our summer work and our in-house, well, three categories. I'd say our in-house projects, our transfer to capital projects, and then our EPC projects. Things are moving along well. We redid the North Gym. The South Gym is nearly finished, or perhaps finished. Mr. Barth? Excellent, okay. When do we think that students will be able to use it?
Tuesday, they'll be able to walk on it, the gymnastics will be pushed out.
On Thursday, gymnastics is coming back.
Okay, they will be very happy. They were they've been shuffling off the harbor fields, and I know it's a bit,
Looks great.
it looks beautiful. Yeah. Art gallery, long talked about, finally making progress. This should be wrapping up next few weeks, with hopefully a ribbon cutting in early November before we have our annual crafts fair, which is where most of the funding for it has come from. So I think it'd be great for the crafts fair to be able to see that. EPC work continues in process at virtually all the buildings. We've also installed window film on our buildings in the high school, Memorial, Birchwood, Maplewood, and Stimson. Small engineering room continues to progress at Walden High School, waiting on furniture. So we'll be having a few ribbon cuttings when these things get done. Upcoming projects, hopefully during the school year, our fitness center should kick off in the next few weeks. The rehabilitation of that, and our bleachers after the football season will be demolished, and we'll have a press box reinstalled, drainage improvements, and a comfort station. And we begin to discuss summer projects so it's time that already that time, because if you want to get them up to Albany and approved, you need to start thinking about it. So our next two meetings will focus on that as we get feedback from administration, from our buildings as to our athletics, as to priorities there. So we'll start to build that and hopefully make a recommendation to the full board by the end of the year. And that's facilities. Future meetings are listed October 11th and October 25th, which is Board of Education recognition meeting. Comments by board members? No comments? Dr. D'Elia.
Yes, unfortunately today we received some bad news regarding Dolores Thompson. She has passed away, I believe, at 94 years of age. Dr. Steele, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, her daughter, Tracy Edwards, has done a lot of work with us here in the district. She's been a real valuable piece of our professional development. I had the privilege and honor of working as a co-chair with Dolores Thompson last year for Unity Day, which I'm going to speak about in a second. And I can tell you that at 93 years old last year, I couldn't believe how much energy she had and her dedication, and another icon of the town of Huntington. Very sad. But she wants, obviously, we're going to live in her wishes, and we're going to make this the best Unity Day possible, and we're going to continue with this moving forward beyond this year. That's my promise. And we have 3 distinguished honorees this year. We have Risco Mention-Lewis, who is a Deputy Police Commissioner. We have Errol Toulon, who is the Suffolk County Sheriff. And we have Rodney Harrison, the police commissioner of Suffolk County. So we look forward on September 30th. Will be the most protected area in the place. We're really looking forward to honoring these three wonderful individuals, and I'm going to tell you, Dee Thompson had a major role in these three being up there. That will be up there on the 30th. So we're looking forward to it. You'll hear more information will be coming home, and I know the principals are going to do a great job, as they usually do, with promoting it, and it's going to be a lot of fun stuff at Unity Day on September 30th. So. And curriculum nights have been well attended. And this was the first year we had dual grade levels within our intermediate schools. We had 3rd and 5th grade at both our intermediates, and it went very well. And, you know, there are parents, because teachers are providing the option for virtual curriculum nights. And so we're able to get 2 grade levels in the same night without really making any kind of negative impact whatsoever. So I don't think we could do 3, because we started looking at that. It would just be too much congestion, and our elementary schools are too big for that. So, but they've been well attended, and you know, whether in person or virtually. So, you know, there's a nice energy in the air, and it seems like this is our 2nd meeting since children have arrived back in school. But it seems like we've been going for a while now, and that's a testament to everybody out there that works in the district and making students feel comfortable and at ease right away. So we're off to a great start.
Great, thank you, Dr. Lillian. I know you got close to Ms. Thompson over the last few years, and thank you for continuing to make it good. And I think we've taken Unity Day even better than it was before. I like the front location to Stimson, and it's a real great success. Big loss for our community. Another big loss. Dolores Thompson was she was a legend. Had a street renamed after her, and really wasn't afraid to make her point of view known. Very strong voice. For the town of Huntington, so an enormous loss as well.
Yes. Yeah. I'll just say, in my 20-plus years of working with her, she accomplished a tremendous amount, going back to her early days, and she's been a stalwart community proponent, activist, and she's been very savvy about all of the work that she's done, and I got a chance to see it about 2 weeks ago before she passed. At Tracy's home. So she holds a very special place in my life, and you know, it's just a big loss. But we're going to make Unity Day the best. We're going to honor her legacy with Unity Day because she put so much into that, and look forward to continuing that legacy.
Thank you, Mr. Joyner, for your reflections. Other comments? Ms. Myers.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Stephen. Sorry, I was taking notes before. We skipped over. But I just want to wish our community a very happy Hispanic Heritage Month that kicked off September 15th and goes through October 15th. Walking the halls in the various curriculum nights, it's been great to see some of the projects and the things that our students are learning about. Our Hispanic community is such an important and vibrant part of South Huntington, so just want to thank everyone for their contributions, and gracias a nuestras familias hispánicas que son tan importantes a nosotros. And thank you again for all the teachers that are really bringing it to life for all of our students.
Thank you, Ms. Meyer. And I believe at our next meeting, October 11th, we have a Hispanic Heritage presentation, which is our first time doing so. So I think it's be a nice addition. And then the Town of Huntington also does their Hispanic Heritage Night at Town Hall. All right, anybody else? Mr. Smelian, what's going on in the high school and among the student body?
So I just want to take a few minutes to talk about what I've been working on. Before that, I just want to extend my condolences to the whole Caden family on the passing of Mr. James Caden. May his memory be a blessing. I'm currently working very closely with the students of Wall Whitman to ensure that their voices are being heard, taken into consideration, and then answered. I met with Dr. Murphy today to talk about a few of these topics, and we're working on making sure those goals are met. I'm currently planning, along with the help of Mr. Duggan and Mr. Toto, to set up monthly trips to the 6th grade center and to the middle school to hear the voice of some of our other students to get more than just the high school perspective. In addition, I just wanted to talk about our 9-period day. Personally, I'm loving it. It's really nice to have an extra period as well as a lunch period, or a leadership period in my case, to have that buffer between classes. I think everybody deserves a little bit of a break to relax in their busy schedule, and I've been able to take an additional elective, which I'm very much enjoying. And from what I've seen in the hallways, everyone is acclimating to the new school year very well and to the 9-period day very well. So thank you for implementing that. I think, when we talk about the life skills kids making the bracelets and the animatage tables and getting all these awards, I think that really goes to show how great of a district we are. I just want to talk about the late buses at Stimson. My brother's in 8th grade, so I guess I could say I'm a little biased, but I think that's a great addition, and I think it'll be extremely helpful to the middle school students, and more so the middle school students' parents, because then they won't have to be rushing around, and some of them don't even have rides to be able to go home, and I think this will encourage kids to get more involved in clubs and extracurricular activities, which I think is really great. I'm also looking forward to homecoming on October 14th. I'm looking forward to seeing everybody there and celebrating our district and the new school year. As I was sitting here tonight, I was really thinking, well, what makes, and I think South Huntington School District is really special. And I think my time here has been very special. And, I was thinking about, like, what's one thing that, has made my time here so special? And I think definitely it has been the education and the teachers. I think that we have some great faculty and staff here, and I've learned so much, and I couldn't be more grateful. And we also have so many great resources to educate everyone the way they learn best, and I think that's very important. I'm looking forward to continue working closely with the board, the administration, and of course all of our students to make sure our district thrives as a premier district in Long Island, New York, and the United States. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jaron. Thank you. And Jaron is going to also be, in addition to all the other stuff he mentioned, he'll be a student member on the Wellness Committee as well. Mr. Duggan, how's it working with the late buses? How have they been received so far?
Been received incredibly well. We had a couple of moments of trying to figure things out, but it seems to be running very, very smoothly now. On Wednesdays we have students from Silas also using the late bus, so it's not just a huge help for Stimson, it's help for Silas as well. The number in my head right now, we've had over 200 students use the late bus in just 3 weeks, and that's before clubs have really started going. So it's going well. I think it's just going to grow tremendously in the next couple of weeks.
Great to hear. Good to hear. Okay, thank you, Jaron. Any voice of the resident? All right, take a motion to adjourn. We don't have to go back to exec session. Motion to adjourn. Ms. LaCara, seconded by Mr. Bronson, Mr. Joyner, and Ms. Meyer. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. Be well. See you on October 11th. Okay. And see you on Unity Day first.